Let's go.
Hey guys, this is Hardabs. Welcome back to JEWELCAST. It's been quite a few weeks of us being away, and during that time the market has went down, and it's just been pretty rough at this point in time. But we had a few weeks worth of good AMA from DFK devs and all that. So we have a lot of different things to talk about here. We have the brand new map here that is showing on the screen. Castles updated. We have different types of land plots with different numbers there. So we do have in the castle many different plots of land that are up for sale. It's really exciting times. A lot to discuss, and I wanted to toss out the first question as Superior. Wanted to know if you are in the market right now to purchase any of these land plots.
That's a great question. I am in the market to purchase them, but I do want to wait a little bit because there's a couple of things in play right now. There's still 50 other plots, or I believe 49 other plots still available. And depending on when those come onto the market, that could affect price, right? And so because of that, I want to wait a little bit, and I would assume that's why a lot of other people are waiting. And in addition to that, too, obviously, we'd like to know a little bit more about the utility with land. I think with land also compared to Gen Zeros, as I think, me and Zenguin, we were discussing this a little earlier. The utility behind land right now is still a little bit fuzzy for everybody, and so I think that's why things are going to sit at a standstill. We might get a few speculators that'll buy, but I think a lot of the smart buyers, they're still kind of going to wait to see what happens with the remaining plots, if any clarity is going to come out for that. And also, like, if we could get a hint on exactly what the utility behind land's going to be, I think that will probably get me and some other folks to move forward with land. Now, what you might want to know too, Hardabs, is okay, fine, like, why don't I just jump on and like negotiate prices with some of the sellers right now and like try and get something for like 30,000 joules or something. I think that aspect of it for me is about opportunity cost. Like, with some of the Gen Zeros I have right now, because obviously I'm in a very unique situation to be able to generate revenue with them regularly, along with obviously the other heroes on the market buying and selling, flipping and summoning and doing various different things. Right now it just makes a lot more sense for me to watch what happens with land, right? Like, let's say I buy land for like 35,000 joule right now. I am essentially parking that money, right? And that money will remain parked until, the devs can start to roll out features and different things like that for the land, which, could take from the next 2 to 3 weeks, the next 5 to 6 weeks, right? So I think there's probably other aspects too. I think anybody else here on the panel, we have Space Cowboy, Zenguin, Medez, and obviously Low DeFi. Any of you guys want to just chime in on that? That'd be great.
Yeah, maybe I'll add. Sorry, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, on your point of opportunity cost, I think that's a good point, right? There is no functionality currently there yet. So it's sort of a question of like, if I buy now at 30,000, and say that there's actual utility in 6 weeks, the question is, does that utility increase the price from 30,000 more than I could have made using that 30,000 for something else and then buying in 6 weeks, right?
Right. And
yeah, it's not obvious. And it's not even obvious that the price goes up necessarily, right? So there's definitely some risk there.
Right. I would definitely agree with that. I think the point of opportunity cost is probably the main thing preventing people who can actually purchase land to not buy it right now. But maybe another point may also be the fact that Jewel is down a bit from a previous high, and at least historically we've seen that higher priced items in terms of Jewel pricing tend to go down when Jewel itself rises. So there may be something said that if the USD value of land is now being speculated on, that the Jewel value of it might actually go down a bit if Jewel tends to go up. So if you're generally bullish on Jewel, you might want to wait a bit and accumulate more Jewel while you have the opportunity to actually spend that Jewel, as Superior already mentioned, and then try to buy in when Jewel pricings of land starts to go down a bit.
Right. And the other thing too, I think that's hovering all over us is this whole idea of crystal, right? Being liquid enough to take advantage of kind of that wild run on AVAX that's kind of going to happen whenever it does. Space Cowboy, I don't know if there was a few things you wanted to mention as well.
Yeah, I think we all know that you're going to need strong heroes to get these lands, and we're all positioned well in heroes anyway, so I don't see that as something that you need to rush into, because you just need to grind your heroes up and go get land when it gets released.
Right. And on top of that too, like honestly, I'm really curious on what that secondary market's really gonna be like. Obviously, we have the secondary market right now. But yeah, like what happens once a whole bunch of people just start questing for land and they acquired it, and maybe prices tumble a little bit more, or, maybe there's additional secret functionality the devs release that gets people to really want to speculate more on it. So I think that's why I'm kind of waiting still. And again, I'd probably assume that that's what a lot of these other smart buyers are doing.
Yeah, I heard someone else bring this up the past couple days in regards to heroes, but I think it makes sense. Since we have so many snapshots going on and other incentives like the APRs in the pool, it's really hard for there to be like the true value of heroes because there's so much jewel that's like locked up and staked because there's such high incentive that the total amount of jewel that could be used on buying heroes is primarily not. So like there's so much more jewel out there to buy land or, buy these heroes, but at the same time, like even me personally, like I want to have a lot of jewel just ready to go for Crystal Veil whenever that is. So it's definitely, I think that combined with the downturn, it just makes less people willing to participate in those when it might be just a little safer to just stake your jewel for whatever reason right now.
And let me ask you this too, since we're talking about heroes, I think, and this is like a broad question across the board for all of us or any of us to chime in. Like, what do you guys think about the whole mining situation with the heroes, right? Like, mining heroes are going for a premium. Do we see that staying like that for the whole year? Or like, yeah, I'd like a couple of takes on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is hard ups.
That's affected.
Yeah, go ahead, Space.
I think that's affected by the locked jewel market. Honestly, when that velocity of the market goes down a little bit, the miner velocity is going to go down too.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly what I was thinking as well.
I was thinking, what about like when crystal comes and we have like locked crystal? Like, don't we feel like that's probably gonna keep the demand for those types of heroes just kind of like almost like for each expansion? If each expansion is gonna use this concept like of a locked token, we feel like that's pretty much going to keep mining heroes in a bull market?
Yeah, I think so.
That's going to be staggered though, but that when Crystal Veil comes out, mining is not going to come out immediately, right? You're going to stake for Crystal initially, and who knows when the tavern and miners are going to be functional then out of Crystal Veil, but there's going to be a period where they're not going to be usable on Avalanche at all. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, we don't know when those quests will be out, but I think regardless, I mean, even right as the tavern came out, I think especially a lot of people that have a lot of locked jewel were aware of the mining functionality. Where
Yeah.
I mean, I I've been planning on having, a bunch of miners for, you know, collecting the heroes for a while. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of, we didn't know how big the returns are. I think we expected, the quest to work a little differently, and they've kind of changed it, and now we're expecting maybe something to happen with gardening as well. So I think that can maybe shift the markets a little bit, where gardening heroes get a little more love. Obviously, I think people are starting to pick up on that, even though we don't really know when, because there's, they're focused on land, and then there's the expansion, and then there's, a multitude of things they're also working on. Plus, you've got, you know, outside things going on in between, just like the markets and, building the team. And, they kind of are, they've structured their team now a little bit, giving, Dreamer a lot of focus. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting seeing how many things are needing to be, focused on all at once. So
like,
I think
when
that the
gardening,
question of
oh, sorry,
miners
go
is like a. Sorry, I think the point about miners is interesting because you can't really compare the profession as it currently is of mining to any other profession. You can't take a miner's ROI and directly compare it to other quests because, by definition, the way that we are locked jewel mining right now is something that will end. And yes, obviously, new power tokens will come out with new locked crystal and locked whatever the other 3 power tokens will be. But eventually, the devs plans for miners to lose this functionality. Okay, that'll be a long time down the road, but this will stop. So you can't compare the current ROI of miners with the other quests. The other quests in the short term will never be as profitable because they just probably can't fund that. That's at
But
least my take on it.
Let me ask you this, Metas. What about gold mining? I mean, that's not going away.
No, it probably won't, but the reason that gold is booming right now is because all of the whales are currently racing with stamina potions. If gold stays at these prices, then the other quests will probably become reasonably profitable as well, because you need both gold and items for crafting new stuff. So I think that the gold mining quest will become balanced towards the other quests, but that the locked power token quest will, a few years down the line, probably fade out.
Yeah, so I don't know what the I haven't done any gold mining because I have a bunch of locked jewels, so I don't know what the relative returns on gold are from mining versus other professions. But yeah, I would imagine, like, as the sort of banking, the way that they retain their utility, miners, is that presumably, as once locked jewel fades away and that's no longer the use of them, presumably there's a lot more utility for gold with combat and all kinds of potions. And I guess I would assume that the demand for gold will be higher in a year than it is now.
Yeah, that's a big piggyback on that. There's a school of folks that are really bullish on gold, and so it'll be obviously and as stated, it's going to be the in-game currency, and that's if you are secretly mining gold. I believe that since it's at a penny or two right now, it'll be worth a lot more. Maybe even outperform Jewel.
Do you guys really believe that? Because I see gold as like an infinitely inflating token. Like in every video game, like in WoW, where 1 gold back in vanilla WoW was a lot of money, and then now you can get 1 million gold in today's WoW, and that's no problem.
yeah, I'm not really sure where I see gold headed, because I think I can see both sides where, yeah, I mean, there's no real cap on it. It seems like the more people mining gold, and then as maybe like the stam races kind of calm down. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at potions and you look at in-game items that you need gold to kind of transact back and forth, battling will be huge, right? PvP, and I'm just talking based on like extra outside of professions. it'll be really cool to see, you know, how much people will be spending, and we'll be able to get that metric hopefully from Mr. Zipper. But I mean, there is a school of folks that are very, very bullish on gold, and I might be one of them? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for me, I'm bullish on gold from strictly a utility perspective, maybe not from a price perspective. And that's more so from a gaming aspect too, because Space Cowboy hinted to it where in most MMOs that you've played, you know, gold just inflates, right? It's infinite supply, right? But like I'll tell you what I'm speculating on. Now, I'm not buying gold as a result of this, and I'm not endorsing anybody to buy or do whatever with gold, right? But I'll tell you what I'm speculating on and how I'm valuing gold, right? I do feel that once combat quests come out, forging weapons, forging armor, forging goblets, in some way, shape, or form, it's going to have to involve gold. And really, to kind of help this DeFi Kingdoms ecosystem, I think forging weapons, they're going to have to do like mythical weapons. They're going to have to kind of bring in that same formula that they had with heroes with weapons and armor, I would imagine. You throw a bit of gold in there too, where gold can be used as that source of utility. So like right now, Jewel is the utility for summoning. So in my mind, again, speculating here, this is where I'm going with this, gold could kind of become that same burn mechanism in a way where you burn gold to create mythic weapons, but you know, you can get a dud common weapon or something like that. I would imagine that that's how you have to drive the price of gold, right? Because like right now, as we all know, gold, the price is only going up right now because we've got some carrots in front of us, right? Let's level up these heroes and let's, you know, first person to level 10 wins a prize, you know, first person to level 20 probably gets a prize too, right? But then once all of that's over, utility for gold drops, right? Because people don't care about stamina potions anymore. The fishes and the weeds don't mean much. Anybody want to chime on this a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's just, you know, only the sort of temporary incentives that are being provided right now. Like we talked before about, like, you know, there's only so much land that's available, and presumably there will be some kind of race to go, you know, get the land for probably cheaper than it's being sold in like the player-to-player market. And if some of these quests are difficult, you could imagine like buying a bunch of potions or something being an advantage to being able to complete these earlier, and where like spending a lot of gold allows you to complete some of these quests faster, where there's a limited number of people who can succeed. Might be one way that it could end up, that could sustain its price.
I might actually have a different perspective on this. I'm absolutely not touching the prospective value of gold at this point, but we're currently talking about the functionality of heroes that the developers team has confirmed to be the least important aspect of the game, specifically the profession quests. Heroes will most likely have more functionality in PvP, PvE quests, in adventure quests, so I'm not sure if we can look too much forward in terms of valuing profession quests. Just a thought here.
I can agree to that for sure.
Yeah.
A big value of gold is just its ability to act as a tool to affect the economy, like by adding use cases and creating that pressure.
We lose.
It's a interesting tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just imagining the fact that when we go into dungeon questing or we're doing the PvP battles, right? Everyone's going to want to load up on potions and load up on, you know, this and that to make sure that they're, you know, they won't lose their, you know, I guess their hero would die, right? So you want to basically replenish their HP and all that stuff, and MP and all that. So, yeah, I think from that regard, you don't want you always going to want to hold additional items, right? And you know, I think that all stems from having a lot of gold to transact and obtain these items.
Yeah, I think the biggest, you know, thing to taking, you know, like some people want to play this game and like load up on the materials and have all the potions, but then there's also people that want to have the hero and then make the income from it. And then you've got probably most people that want to make money, but they also want to, you know, be involved in the game and not be like left behind because you're just sitting in the bank but you don't have any heroes. So, you know, like what I always do is I just do a little bit of both, right? Like I'll sell some gold. Like I don't really want to speculate on the price. Like I'm so focused on other aspects of the game. So like maybe I'll just sell some of the gold off that I get from my materials, and then I'll keep the rest and try to like do potions. But I'm like, I've always kind of preached about, you know, trying to be involved in every aspect of the game if you can, so you don't have to like stress too much about, like there are people that literally all they do is just, you know, like speculate on these in-game tokens and like the materials. Like people are actively just trading these things, and like the markets are starting to get more dynamic with, you know, the more things that get added into the game, which is interesting for me. But it's like if you're just focused on like one aspect or the other, I think it long term is gonna kind of mess you up.
Yeah, I think another thing, we were mentioning that gold is, you know, inflationary, but it kind of seems to me like gold is the most inflationary it's ever going to be right now, because for a lot of people who have these fishing and foraging heroes, or who aren't mining locked jewel, or don't have a lot in the gardens, like questing getting gold and selling, you know, these items for gold is the only thing they can do with their hero. Once like there are like easier combat quests out and stuff, I would assume that some people who are currently, you know, generating gold and putting it into the market will be doing other stuff instead, and it will be less inflationary in the future. But that's speculation as well.
Makes sense. I mean, I would agree with that. Yeah. Apart from that, I mean, what else? Yeah, and that's kind of the one aspect of where they can't roll out everything all at the same time. So there's certain aspects that might be more lucrative in the beginning, or are maybe a little more effective in terms of ROI, which a lot of people are looking at. So as things get more fleshed out over time, like now you're getting a little more functionality with the heroes because there's more incentive to level the heroes, etc. So, and I think they're kind of seeing that as like the user base grows, like making sure they're implementing all of these aspects to where there's that balance that we want, which is tough, I would say, in the meantime, with, you know, markets, especially with like large price fluctuations and like a lot of just like outside noise. It definitely, I think, disrupts the process a little bit, but seems like they've been doing pretty well at managing, you know, a sharp decline in price, because it's like, you know, they don't have that, the devs can't just, you know, pump the price just because, you know, people are down. So it's,
Well, let me throw a question out there, because this is a curiosity of mine, and you know, I've spoken to some people about it, and I just love hearing opinions on this. So let's say BTC didn't have the crash and the stock market didn't do what it did. Like, Jewel was at $22, right? And then it had that retracement. How low do you guys think that retracement would be? And why do we think that that retracement actually occurred? So let's pretend that Bitcoin never crashed, but maybe at $22, Jewel was too hot. Where do you guys think, and you know, I'd love to hear everybody answer this, where do you guys think that Jewel would have fallen to, and why do you think that that drop would have occurred? Both from a fundamental, you know, you could give me a fundamental answer as well as like TA based as well.
well,
I'm open to everything.
I'll just speak real quick. So initially, I mean, I've been following Jewel price since the beginning. You know, that whatever, like, it's been on an insane run. I mean, when we first started this podcast, you know, we were right here. Jewel was, you know, in its correction, the same price it was, you know, end of November when Bitcoin was around, you know, its all-time highs. We were at the price we are now. So which, you know, doesn't really mean anything to people that bought in, you know, at 10, 15, $20. So I mean, I'd even said on other shows, I think the price, as it was getting overheated, it was maybe making imbalances where there was so much just price speculation, which where it was negatively affecting the hero markets in some sense, where you need, you know, and it will naturally kind of find that sweet spot where I think you can tell by the prices is where have we spent the most time price wise. And that's in this area of like $5 to $10, where you have a comfortable price where people can summon, buy heroes where they're not, you know, too expensive, where a lot of people will, you know, I've heard less complaints about, you know, not complaints, but worries about entry, you know, barrier to entry being too high, stuff like that. And then you combine that with, you know, the locked jewel market where people said had a negative effect on price. I don't know how much of an effect it had. I think it added to people's more, you know, with the uncertain market conditions, it probably made people's, you know, people that were worried about it, it made their decision easier to just sell for a little bit and take profits. So I think this is a good spot, you know, to accumulate. And obviously, you can tell by the price we've spent a lot of time here. So I think $10 is a fair price overall, though, just psychologically and, you know, from both sides.
Yeah, I agree with that $10 price target if the Bitcoin price didn't crash, just because I always think about the fully diluted value, and you have to take that into account. Because, you know, when the unlocks start to happen, tokens are going to inflate by 600% or whatever. So taking that into account, $10 seems like a reasonable, fair price. That, you know, we were bound to pull back anyways because of how overheated we were. And then everything else below $10 was kind of like liquidation cascades that people needed to pull money out to cover their positions, because I certainly did.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, with the broad market conditions that, you know, last thrusts down, like we saw, like, what the top hero wallet sell, you know, at these prices. So I think that's what really pushed us down. But, you know, if you're farming, accumulating, and compounding, you know, it doesn't feel great, but, you know.
Speaking
Yeah,
of farming, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, $10 seems reasonable to me too. But I was curious if people had thoughts on whether like the tavern instability / unusability had impact on the jewel price, because that was happening around the same time, I think, before they released the update that fixed the tavern.
Yeah, I would just say quickly that along with the harmony issues when the prices were high, I think a lot of people sold after that. A lot of the instability definitely caused some of that. And it, like I mentioned to Superior and Hard Abs, it's just it all happened at once. Like it was just the timing of it all. Like usually when negative stuff happens broad market, like you kind of see it all pile on, and that just added to the velocity of the selling. And I think that definitely played a role in it as well. You can see how violent the selling was here compared to other times. So it makes sense. See how like this downturn was a little more sustained and calm. This was just kind of straight down a couple days.
Yeah, I think the outlook for this rest of the year is going to be pretty choppy, considering that, you know, the Fed rate hikes and all that. It's really putting a lot of the technicals pointing towards bearish, but we'll see what actually happens in, you know, upcoming in March, because that's when they're expecting potentially to increase the rate hikes.
Superior, or anyone else got it? Thoughts?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, with the uncertain market conditions, right? I think what's nice to know is you can find some comfort in being in DeFi kingdoms, right? And that's what I always come back to is you know, we don't know where the market's going to go yet because we still need to wait for the Feds to do what they do and then the market reacts. But there's a lot of aspects in the game here that's still very exciting, which makes it extremely bullish, which is kind of the reason why, too. Like, I think we saw this in the locked jewel market. It was not advised, right? But, you know, folks were just bullish and they were buying the locked jewel. Even though there was uncertainty, they were still comfortable, willing to hold that locked jewel and, you know, slowly mine it. But I think that that says a lot about this project, and that, you know, if we were to get full out bear market here, you know, I'd be really happy sitting in Jewel. Granted, you know, you want to take care of the things you need to take care of, like, you know, be in the stables that you need to be in, you know, be cautious, you know, do your homework. But I think when all those things are considered, I'm still really, really happy to see how well Jewel has performed over this period of time.
Yeah, and one more thing to add. DApp Radar is showing that DeFi Kingdoms is showing the 30-day volume that we are 3 times as much as in the last 30 days as Axie Infinity. Like, we are performing very, very well in this space.
So yeah, DeFi Kingdoms is also a DEX, so DEX volume gets added on top of the NFT volume. I think that's how it works. But have you guys done a comparison to what DeFi Kingdoms is like valued at versus like the real business, like EA, Electronic Arts? They're worth $6 billion, so at $10 market cap, fully diluted value, we'd be at $5 billion for a company that's only 4 months old. That's ridiculous, right? But
Yeah,
you know,
no
even
big deal.
like the DeFi premium on top of that, because everything DeFi has an extra premium on it. That just seems like you gotta get some reality check in there.
Yeah, and I think you know, when that ran initially from like $10 up to $20, I was, you know, and that happens, right, in crypto markets where things kind of get front run and they get, you know, market caps in the crypto space are used, and like it's really like it's so hard because it's so much speculation of like how much are these worth, and you can kind of see why some of these downturns are so violent where, yeah, like the price was getting a little too heated, and you know it was gonna kind of work itself out over time. And it's unfortunate that, you know, that's when there's peak hype and everyone's talking about DeFi Kingdoms, and there's all the expansion news, and like you got a bunch of people coming in and buying, and then, you know, and then you see a correction, and it's hard to say because it's the whole market. Like you can look at any other asset and it got wrecked. So but yeah, at the same time you got to look at other aspects, and even just for the jewel economy, you know, if one jewel is $30 right now, how efficient does that make the whole economy really relative? So yeah, things were just heated obviously in all the markets, and I think this is a good time where maybe, you know, down the line as we have a couple more expansions and the product is more developed, then you can see a jewel over $20 and sustainable. So I think we'll be getting there, but it's, you know, what's nice here is like even in times where there's corrections, and you know, if you want to call it a bear market over, you know, a few months, you know, throughout this year, however choppy it's going to be, you know, you at least see there's development going on, where other aspects you just see a bunch of, you know, rug pulls, you know, communities breaking down, not a lot of development. So it's comforting, right? Like Superior says, it's like I feel comfortable here, you know, farming and, you know, buying heroes and actively questing while things kind of like on the price wise kind of, you know, do their thing.
Yeah, and I do feel like at this state where we're at, especially with how much bigger the community's gotten, you know, they are being pushed into a point where, hey, you know, they have to put a little bit of the faith in the devs, because we might not see another immediate run up in price. But if this utility can continually get fleshed out over the next couple of months, it could bring a lot of value for everybody, right? And I think I still recall this, and Space Cowboy and everybody here, and Wishing Well, you know, this is something I joke around about. When Wishing Well first came out, you know, being able to sell tiers at those prices like a week was nothing short of just astonishing. You know, it kind of gave us a glimpse of what DeFi kingdoms could be when, you know, all the P to E aspects are in place. And I think that this newer, larger group of people that have just come in, they haven't seen that, haven't had a taste of that yet. But, you know, the devs have been consistently delivering, right? And I just think hopefully it's just a matter of time. Obviously, it's going to take months for some of these pockets of features to really just connect well with the whole ecosystem here. And folks are able to see a little bit more ROI on their heroes over the course of time to make up for that, you know, them buying at $22 and, you know, Jewel is only sitting at $8, $9, $10, and they can kind of make some of that back through the utility.
Yeah, I think just like from a macro perspective, when, you know, what we've experienced the last few months, it's like people really need, you know, to reflect on, you know, what you're doing in this space. And, you know, a lot of it obviously is motivated just by everyone wants to make money and profit. A lot of people want to play this game too, so that's, you know, that's the added benefit and be involved. And like the community's great, and a lot of people, I continually see a lot more people getting involved in the community. But, you know, like we all have lives and everyone has money, and you want to protect your capital, and you need to be smart about, people need to understand that you can't just because this is a promising project, you know, like the devs, we can't, you know, ultimately you can't do anything about the price. You got to really understand basic, you know, and, you know, wealth preservation and just investing strategies where you can't just, when you see a price run up, you know, you want to make sure you're smart about when you're buying. And, you know, it's trying to be a little less cliche than telling people to just do their own research, but, you know, like you really need to understand that, you know, this can happen. Like you know, things could keep going down. Like the market really is ruthless, and it can be a lot of times, especially if you haven't been through this before. Like a 50% drawdown, you know, it can go down another 50% and it can come back up another 100% the next day. You know, you gotta have a long time horizon, and you can't, you know, have huge outlandish expectations about becoming, you know, super rich. And right off the bat, you really need to understand the space you're in, and, you know, be smart. Like it's ruthless. I mean, it's rough. Like no one likes seeing the prices go down, but, you know, and then trying to build like a game on top of it too, you need to really, you know, I think it's been a good time for people to reflect on this stuff. And if you stick around, you know, it should be rewarding.
And I think that what you're saying too is also people not getting too greedy, right? Because when, you know, the price starts to climb like that, oh, think about taking some profits, you know what I mean? And also understand that in all these markets, there's not infinite money, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, it has to either plateau, right, and then settle down a little bit. The euphoria really gets people.
Yeah, and that's even in the, you know, if you're just talking strategy from this game, like I'll take profits into heroes where, you know, now heroes are selling a little bit better, and it's maybe more profitable to summon and use your jewel, you know, to do some of these things in the game while the price is down. And holding heroes, you know, technically you're not, you know, your heroes are still becoming more valuable over time as you're questing with them. And, you know, so That's why it's if you're just in the bank for the airdrop and then the price drops 50%, you're like, what the hell? But if you're holding some heroes and you've got a little bit in the gardens and you've got some in the bank, it, you know, there's some hedges there within the game, I think.
Yeah, on that topic, I'm sort of curious what kind of allocation percentages people have to like heroes versus sort of just liquid jewel. Because one thing that we observe is that when the jewel price goes up, often the hero prices are sort of more tied to the U.S. dollar value, and so like for Gen Zeros, right, the jewel price went way down when the jewel price or when the jewel per USD price went way up, and at least for myself, I found myself sitting on a lot of sort of illiquid heroes and wasn't actually able to take profits very well at that point. So I probably will not make that mistake again. I'm curious how people deal with that.
Yeah, I think that was like an across the board issue, right? Because even myself,
Yeah.
I went pretty heavy in on heroes, right? And again, I think what really got me was the wishing well. So, I built up this whole strategy and I went pretty hard on heroes after that fact. And kind of like when the markets for heroes really started to slow down, I was like, darn, we need more utility, right?
Yeah.
And so the only set of heroes, honestly, that had me hold for a little while was the miners, right? Because that market, it never went down. Miners, for whatever reason, stayed at a premium. But yeah, I think after that too, I think I learned my lesson as well, which again, I think is why I kind of got a bit more cautious on land. Because again, being illiquid, to be able to take the advantage of some of these downturns, it sucks. So I think a lot of us was in that boat, honestly. And we tried to kind of do a few things here and there to keep the ROI coming in, but it wasn't particularly easy, especially when the tavern just got pretty bad for a little bit.
Yeah, that was brutal. Bad timing on the tavern issues.
Well, when you look at the price chart, like when we made that run from $8 back up to $20, like the tavern wasn't really working there. So I think some of that
Right.
price movement was kind of fueled by just all you could really do was just buy Jewel, and that's when a
Right.
lot of like people were just piling in the gardens, because you still had 400 or 500% APRs, if not a little higher, still then. And yeah, the tavern issues itself really made it rough. So a lot of people weren't able to take profits up here anyway, other than just selling your Jewel. So I think that's kind of what just fueled onto that. Yeah, it's tough trying to find that sweet spot. I try to make sure I'm always keeping. I can't really hold in the bank. I like moving stuff around too much. In the gardens,
Same
I
here.
like farming in the gardens. So I still try to at least have 50% in the gardens, and then I trade a lot of heroes. Like I'm slinging heroes back and forth. Like I'm selling a lot, I'm summoning a lot, so it kind of comes in and out, like in terms of I might have just extra Jewel because I just sold a bunch of heroes, and then I will probably reinvest it. But I think it's safe for most people to think that they have the largest amount in the gardens. That just makes ultimate sense to me. I would assume most do as well.
Yeah, for me, I'm trying to also I don't know, I was just holding random heroes that I wasn't actually like getting very much value out of, and I've tried to avoid doing that, right? Like I've got, my 18 miners so I can mine lock Jewel as much as possible, and some gardeners, but I'm not sort of holding heroes speculatively really anymore. I'm using all of them, trying to convert the rest into Jewel. It's one of the lessons that I learned.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at it the same way too, and especially since gardening, you can't batch your heroes yet. People just aren't as bullish on them. We'll see what happens with the change. I think some people are starting to front run that now, and I think that will be helpful. Even earlier, I would do a lot of speculation on just like prices of heroes, and in that sense now, like I need to make sure that I'm questing with them regularly and not just holding them, or I have, I'm using their summons or either trying to hire some out and like having a plan with the hero and not just, yeah. And I know there's a lot more talk about hero burning and stuff now, and obviously they're all going to have more utility down the line, and then you got the scholarship program possibly coming in, but still there's, how long, and everyone knows we've got single jewel staking with crystals, so you want to have as much liquid as well, but you also want to have exposure to heroes, so we'll see.
I had this idea, and I've spoken about it to a couple of community members, and I guess like maybe like 4 or 5 of us, we came to that conclusion. Obviously, things could play out differently, but I did want to know like how this panel feels about it. So the conclusion that we came to was, as the heroes level up more and more, and the higher level quests get released, the value of summoning, the value on summoning is going to diminish. Because like, for instance, like right now, with a ton of summons on them, they're still going for a premium, obviously with the correct profession. But the idea was, once you have a level 15 hero, and like, let's say there's a level 10 quest out, or there's a level 15 or a level 20 quest out, right? The fact that, you could go summon and create another level 1 hero all over again, it's not going to be as exciting to the general market. And so because of that, level 1 heroes and actually the value of summoning, so the rental costs on summoning, could actually go down. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, I can agree with that. I see it as, even now, like I'm looking at my heroes that are level 5 and level 4, and I can see how quickly they will kind of, you bring a level 1 in a couple months, like it's going to be so far behind. Like it's just not as, like, people buying in a month or two aren't going to want to buy level 1 heroes too. So I kind of agree with that aspect of, you might see a bigger disparity in the markets where if your hero's not leveled up, there's just not, it's going to be riskier. It might be worth using for like scholarship programs and stuff, but I think the traditional way we've thought about renting and buying and selling heroes, I think, they might take a downturn in terms of price.
Yo, let me throw a very
Anybody else?
That what about the perilous journey? What about this deflationary, like, heroes who die?
Speculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea of taking a hero on a quest that is, I know there's a lot of information that Frisky's been saying in chat, like the last day, about this. I don't have it pulled up. I might be able to find it, but and I think a lot of this stuff with heroes, it's hard to price in, or a lot of people, the general, won't price it in. I mean, even you're looking at all these new traits people are looking at. I think it's nearly impossible for it to be fully priced in most heroes in the market.
Well, I think,
it's definitely
think
not
you would
priced
add
in
people
yet.
wanting to come in to have just kind of disposable heroes.
I do feel like it'll be priced in overnight once those level quests.
Yeah, for sure.
up.
What were you saying, Enoch?
You think it'll put pressure on summoning if people kind of want like low-level disposable heroes to try out on these quests where they could lose the hero?
Yeah. I just don't know how much like I don't know if we know enough yet, but it would make sense because you're not going to want to put, send any specific hero or like any hero on those quests, right? You're going to want something that you would be okay with losing potentially. So, and
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but at the same time, like I would imagine that the chance of losing a hero might be related to like how its stats are or how strong it is. So,
Right.
like for higher level quests, you might not have a choice, right? Which I think would probably be a good mechanic to sort of avoid the this problem that Superior was talking about, where eventually there's just a bunch of level 50 heroes and like level 1 heroes can't do anything, so nobody summons because it takes 6 months to level them up or whatever it is, right? If they're constantly have some chance of being burned, even for higher level heroes, that might keep things moving a bit better.
Yeah, and I think I mean, especially with higher level quests, I mean, from everything I've heard them mention, they're like they continually say, these are level 0 quests, low level heroes. As they get leveled up, it's going to be a lot better, more money, more earning potential, more, value creation. So it I think that's going to really start getting priced in soon, and I feel like there's good enough and enough incentives to continually quest and hire your, level up your heroes, and it's definitely a good time to do that right now when it at least gives you reasons to stay involved in the markets, even if, price isn't doing, exactly what you want.
Depending on how much better the rewards are for some of these higher level quests. Also, going back to the sort of the gold discussion, right now there are incentives provided by the devs to, whoever can get to level 10 first gets a prize or whatever. But getting to an appropriate level for these high level quests might sort of provide additional, depending on how the prices work out, incentive to maybe power level your heroes. If you, summon some awesome mythic level 1 hero, maybe it's worth it to use a bunch of stamina pots on it to level it up more quickly or something.
Right. Nice idea.
Yeah, and like that's just something in terms of if you're involved in this ecosystem, that's why it's good to, be ready, because things can change. Like if you're quick to act in this game on, seeing what is profitable or, what is beneficial for you, and you're, either gaining on Jewel and getting a better position, getting higher level heroes, getting more heroes, whatever it may be, like you need to, it really requires you keeping your ear to the ground, being involved in the community, being balanced in the game. You're not too concerned when price fluctuation goes down because you have some sort of hedge with heroes, and you're also just not aping all of your money in at $20. So, but I think long and like sustained leveling heroes, there's gonna be, more demand for those higher level heroes. I think the price is gonna go up on them. And I still don't think the market is fully priced in everything from USD wise with the recent pricing. Like you can still get heroes for relatively cheap USD wise, that when the prices were this in, November, Jewel price of these heroes was way higher. That may be because there was less heroes out. I don't know, but I think there's still a lot of good deals on the market right now if you can take advantage of that. Any other thoughts, Superior? Any other thing you want to touch up on?
I really feel like you hit a lot of the nice points. I see Space Cowboy was unmuted there. If he wants to say anything.
Sorry, I missed the last 10 minutes or so, but somebody mentioned that we kind of have to put a little faith in devs. Like we put all of our faith in the devs, and they can incentivize behavior, which is, I think they got that point across, that they can really drive behavior, which is what caused that massive Jewel run from $8 to $22, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody was staking for Avalanche. So, and we know they can drive behavior. So they have endless tools up their sleeves, and we're living in the forefront of history with this whole GameFi experiment. So it's fun. I think they'll come up with something to keep the value circulating, and just buckle in and enjoy the ride.
And that's the biggest thing too. Is, I mean, I've kind of taken a step back in terms of like when price goes down and you get more people, there's more spotlight, and you know, whatever's gone on the last few weeks, and you know, like whatever people want to say about, you know, the team, regardless of the project. I mean, it's, you know, it's crypto, and like everything we do is a risk. Um, we're, you know, the team itself has done a good, like there's more incentive for them, the team specifically, to deliver on the product now than it would be to like, you know, do anything else outside of that, right? Like they've got a lot of incentive to keep this rolling, you know, build a team. Their funds, you know, they can fund themselves if we're in a bear market. I don't think they're strapped for cash in terms of, you know, like keeping the product rolling. And, you know, a lot of this stuff we can keep an eye on. And then, you know, there's just noise, a lot of noise. And, you know, people love, you know, speculation and, you know, talking about, you know, whatever events go on and whatever project you're going to be involved in this space, not even crypto, like any financial markets or really anything. Like there's grifters, there's people that are, you know, everyone's looking out for themselves in a lot of the ways, regardless who it is, right? Like I'm not just going to give my money away to people, or, you know, like people aren't just going to like willfully, you know, like people still want to look out for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that, like taking profits and, you know, not having everything invested in this and having, you know, like your rent, you know, if price goes down, you know, you're still okay at home. So it's a big experiment that we're a part of, and that's where the real risk reward comes in. So, I mean, I'm still excited. Like they're still shipping, like they're working, they're getting a lot of stuff going, and I'm really excited. You know, I'm super excited for Crystal Vale. Like that's kind of my forefront. That's what I'm focused on, and leveling my heroes and just positioning myself. So just accumulating Jewel and having a plan together is kind of my focus right now.
I think what I'm most excited about is whatever specific aspect of combat they're working on. I do feel like for some reason they've sped up that process. I think a few months ago, I was under the impression that some avenue or some aspect of combat was going to just be way later on, but it seems like combat is something that they're really focusing on right now. So that really excites me, even if it's like a small aspect of it or whatever that may be. But the fact that the focus is there means that something juicy is on the horizon, like not too far away for us. Obviously, it's not listed on the roadmap, right? Because PvE is like all the way down on the roadmap. But I don't know, just
yeah, I've got that impression too, that it's kind of being pushed maybe a little quicker.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, and even if it's, you know, like slowly, you know, releasing those aspects where it's, you know, minimal at the beginning and just like kind of testing the mechanics and whatnot. So I'm interested to see how this rollout works and like timelines. You know, you know, it's going to be what it is at this point. They seem pretty good about keeping the time, you know, up to date and keeping us in the loop. So that's all I can really ask for at this point.
You guys think that they pushed combat a little to the left because of the price action? They need to keep the carrot on the stick, you know?
I mean, it would make sense.
I think it's just,
it would make sense.
It's definitely from that aspect, and just like, I mean, I see the Discord amount growing. Like, it just seems like the growth is getting there where if we're having like hundreds of thousands of users, I mean, we got to do more than, you know, just like the farming and hero and just profession quests. So yeah, I think it's just the overall growth is just coming. They're just having to push stuff quicker, all because of that. So yeah, I would agree.
They've also been successful enough that they, you know, back in the day there was like a couple people, but now the team has grown to like 50 people. That's pretty cool. So maybe they have, you know, some more bandwidth to do that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure they're completely strapped for bandwidth, but they have a big enough team where that kind of, maybe it's feasible to do it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and you know, it would help to, like, if they can push it out sooner, it'll help handle some of the scrutiny, right, that DFK's seen on Twitter for growing as much as it has, right? Because a lot of people are saying, hey, you know, DFK's not much of a game. Where's the game, right? So,
Right.
So,
I think it's easy to kind of forget that, like, this has all happened in 4 and 5 months. I mean, yeah, crypto moves quick, but, you know, I
it's
wasn't
true.
expecting this growth this quickly, and
Yeah.
you know, that's just how the markets work, right? Like, it gets front run, it
Right.
gets overheated, hype builds, it moves quick. Everyone on Twitter's talking about it, and then, you know, we're lucky, you know, we're lucky Jewel had this run before the macro markets tanked, because, you know, like, if
Right.
Jewel didn't have that run at the end, like, Jewel's been moving up against Bitcoin like hardcore, like, from the beginning.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm definitely thankful for that. It's, you know, I'm comfortable, and
What do you guys think? Let's change the topic a little bit. Like, how do you think they've managed their growth part? Because we talked a lot about game and the game dev, but like the community's grown so much, and then we have like all these scandals. You know, I call them scandals because it makes it more exciting in the community, and you know, they have a bunch of mods that are essentially, you know, operating on a different standard than the core team, right? So there's a fragmentation of how they handle personnel there. But how do you think the team has kind of managed the community and the growth and all this tertiary stuff, which really isn't tertiary because the community is half of the project?
Superior.
Sure. I'll chime first. No, considering what I've seen in other crypto projects, okay, like if I compare DeFi Kingdoms with other crypto projects from that avenue, I feel like they've done a decent job considering how quick the growth was. I do feel like they need to present that unified front between, you know, the core team as well as their moderators, along with other external contributors. I do feel like that is something that we need to start working on and really bring in that unity there, so that, you know, it's more professional, it's properly presentable, and there's also no factions, which unfortunately has been a little bit of a thing between, you know, core devs and other staff members and things like that. So I feel like they kind of have to tackle those problems almost as those problems are coming at them, probably because the growth is too fast. I mean, you know, I've worked at companies like small startups where we've grown really fast and we actually crashed and burned because, you know, the leaders who are in charge just couldn't manage meeting customer demand as well as gearing up the staff to be unified, well trained, and kind of just presenting that single idea, you know, in front of their customers. So I think what DeFi Kingdoms did well is they got enough buy-in from the community that, you know, when these things began to happen, the community didn't rip them to pieces, right? So that's a positive, because I have been in crypto projects where they began to grow and the community itself ripped the devs and ripped the project to pieces and everybody lost their money. So obviously I don't want to compare DeFi Kingdoms to that. And, you know, I'm not trying to say that DeFi Kingdoms shouldn't do more as an organization. But, you know, the little that they did do was enough to get us to this point where, okay, you know, we're at a junction now where we have to make some hard decisions about who we're going to be, how we're going to present ourselves to the public, and, you know, how we're going to carry on. I think various people from the community have brought this up the developers' attention, which is good. And, you know, my hope and right now my trust is that they find this to be extremely important and something for them to address, because again, you know, we're at the billion caps now. You know, this is no longer a tiny little Harmony project. So, there's a lot of money here and a lot more money to come. So yeah, they do need to kind of tighten that up a little bit. But yeah, I hope so that going to actually resolve this, because you know, I mean, and I'm not gonna lie too, and this is only my personal opinion. I am disappointed on from the outside contributors side. I am disappointed that didn't have a greater level of professionalism for what DeFi Kingdoms is trying to do. I understand that, everybody, and since, they're not part of the core team, that they could adhere to slightly other standards. But I do feel like DeFi Kingdoms was a flagship product on Harmony. It's done something that nothing else on Harmony could ever do since I was here in February of 2021. I haven't been on Harmony for very long, but what DeFi Kingdoms has done was, it's an anomaly, right, on Harmony. And I think for external contributors to not respect that and align themselves with what these core devs were doing was kind of disappointing to me, because of the greater vision and just the ability for these devs to actually execute up to this point. So now, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the core team themselves shouldn't have worked extra hard to, bring in this unified front between the staff members from outside of the core team. But, I did want to share that personal opinion. But I expect the team to actually resolve this, because it is important considering how big DFK is. Sorry if I rambled on. I apologize. To you, Low DeFi, if there's anything you want to chime in.
No, I mean, that was a great response. I agree, and I think just from a transparency standpoint, just having those AMAs every week, it's been beneficial from the beginning, and allowing them to field questions, and people from the community being willing to press on these issues and bring them up when we have the opportunity. And I don't think community members in here and people we've associated with and we all know, like, they're willing to bring it up, and I think that's great, and that they're willing to answer it. And I think it was inevitable that issues were going to come up, and then they were going to have to deal with it like this. And now it's more so, how do they follow through with handling these situations? And is it, then it's like, is it going to be easier for them down the line to, enforce these things, or having a more clear cut, policy, and hopefully a lot of these things don't come up as much in the future. And so I think it was just going to happen, like in any project, problems are going to arise, that maybe they weren't planning for, and then you have to adapt, react, and then hope, those implementations help that issue and build the community trust. And I think they do a good job at building our trust and being transparent. So yeah, I think the actions that are taken in the next few weeks will kind of show that. So yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think, again, it's a big reminder. We've seen what's happening with other projects and people within the community. It's just human nature at the core of it. And, you need to make sure you're keeping yourself, in check. A lot of people here are anonymous, so there's, a big worry there too. It's like, where's the line when you're operating under these anon accounts? It's easier to get away with stuff. And yeah, it's, again, like, all this stuff just kind of piles on at once, and it's hard. Like, it's hard for people to be engaged in the community. There's a lot of negativity and, worrying and anxious, and, just infighting. And but it's also, you have to address this stuff. You can't, and it's we're operating in a space where people want decentralization, and we need, we need to kind of keep these, you know, ideas and, what we want out of crypto, but you also want there to be structure and order. So, and having the community have a say in it, with these votes and having the AMAs and these discussions we're even having right now, I think are important. And I think that's where the bounty program that they just started, or the grants for contributors and stuff like that, is a good step as well. Showing support and, maybe having to go through more of a rigorous process to be, a part of the team, and then seeing how they structure that internally. So yeah, I think it'll make them stronger down the line going through these, whatever turbulence we have right now, and hopefully they, structure it well and make it work.
What are your thoughts, Space Cowboy?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your personal thoughts.
I mean, they're in a challenging situation just because of the rapid speed of their growth. And we've seen them reorganize Discord like 4 or 5 times with the name and color changes.
Yeah.
I remember even Bolon was confused about some of the color changes at one point. But a lot of the issues, I don't think they're like super like, trust breaking issues, but they start stacking up. So they need to kind of address them promptly. And I think the best way to address these problems is like Frisky just needs to make an announcement instead of like coming into chat and addressing individual people, right? Because what I get are screenshots after the fact, and I'm like, well, I wasn't there as part of that conversation. Whereas if he just makes that announcement in Discord, everybody sees it. And also, one of the issues I really wish they would address is the whole like changing of the level of competition from it was initially like the 5 highest level players, right? And then they changed it the first 5 to get to level 10 or something like that. Am I right in that? But that was a subtle change, but it was a change of the rules that wasn't pre-announced. And I know that there were at least 5 separate people that have DM'd me that are saying that they essentially got, rugged because they spent thousands of jewels to get to level 8, and then they're kind of disqualified or something from that competition, and now they're part of a lottery system. So I'm not sure how that works out. But yeah, the rules were kind of changed midway through that competition, which I thought was kind of odd.
Yeah, no, I don't know the exact wordings that were changed, but I've seen, people say the same thing, and I'm assuming they'll have to address it because, if I ended up not partaking. I used some stamina potions to get to level 5, but I kind of stopped there. But yeah, it wasn't cheap, so I understand if people felt, or if they were, kind of gypped out of the competition by kind of changings around. That's because I think people, when we had the airdrops for just the hero rarities, people were upset because there wasn't any incentive to level your heroes, and now they added the airdrops for leveling the heroes. And I mean, we can see how they can change the incentives, or just add more airdrops and whatnot. So definitely, if something was changed, I would hope that they would address that as well. And I don't think, stuff like that, I would assume isn't, made to favor anyone specifically, or to screw anyone over, even if it's the case. So I think that's definitely something they need to be aware of over time, of how much influence they're having as well over like the markets and how much they can change, and I think they know, there's a lot of money on the line too. So I'm hoping that's taken more into consideration down the line.
I have a little suggestion for that.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like with these types of kind of situations that are popping up, like it's almost like, I hate to say this, but it's almost like DeFi Kingdoms needs some kind of, I don't know, but some kind of like community council of sorts that like when these types of things happen, they can just get raised really quickly so that they could be dealt with right away? Or do you guys feel like there's enough of this information being vocalized to Frisky and those who, have the power to make the changes, like hear these things? Like, do you guys feel like something like that might be needed, or is it okay just a whole bunch of individuals could be, either DM Bolon or DM Frisky or, anybody else, and just be like, hey, this just changed and me and like 10 other people just got screwed over. What do you guys think about that? Like, do you feel like that might be something that's needed, or like, obviously we can make suggestions, right? And we can ask questions or we can provide feedback, right? But like, for instance, like what Space Cowboy mentioned, that's like what happened to those people. Hey, they kind of got screwed over, right? So there should be some immediate action taken, because stuff like that will happen, right? Like, tell me, yeah, what do you guys think?
Enoch, did you have something you want to add?
Oh, I was gonna say, like, we could just avoid this by, you go to the bank and there's an airdrop thing, and you sign a smart contract, and it's as easy as that. Or any of these contests could just be a smart contract, and then it's not going to change. But I love that council idea. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think some sort of council would. It just, how do we form that? Does DFK help form it, or is it more community run? But I definitely think that's something that could stem from everything that's gone on. Would be a good idea. So that might be something to pursue, either through a suggestion or talking with more community members of, like everyone's talking about like DAOs and stuff and like, but I think we can probably find something just community run that could maybe address that issue for sure.
Space Cowboy, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea to kind of have a filtering element there to present the view in a non-biased, neutral manner, and have a quick access to the boss, so to say, because they're busy people, right? And they can't have 5, 10 people DMing them. And if it's like the 5 or 10 same people keep DMing them, that's like, why do they have that privileged access in the first place? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Whereas if it's something the
right.
community voted on, then it's like a structure that we created bottom up versus these people just have special privilege access to the devs.
Right. Yeah, because I mean that just doesn't sound good what happened there, and that on their part it could have been accidental, any form of oversight, but we definitely don't want to discourage the users, and and having other people point to that as an example in the future of something bad that
Right.
could happen.
And stuff like,
So
even stuff with like the XP exploit, stuff like that. I think it would make it easier for it to just get, like brought to their attention, and maybe, they have like some sort of like filtering like task force that can, figure out the urgency of that and how it can get implemented, or if it's, something that needs to be acted on. So I do think
yeah,
that's
no,
a great idea. So
I, truth be told, I reluctantly bring that up because there was another project last year I was in that had one, and oh god, it was just a nightmare.
yeah.
So, but not to say that this would ever be. This community is completely different, of course, and I love the community. But yeah,
Cool. Yeah, I think the plan for trying to do like, even with this project, having, more voices, and I like having, community members on, talking with as many people as we can, and um, you know, doing more open discussions here, having people bring up concerns, even, or just discussion points or new, people that have projects they're working on within DeFi kingdoms and, just growing the community. So I think that's be awesome. We can do more chats like this soon. Anyone got some final thoughts? Anything you want to add?
I just want to say thank you for everybody that came and participated. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Just kind of getting more people in and kind of slowly growing, JEWELCAST, trying to make it, yeah, even just our vision of just trying to make it a little more community run and more community involvement and, discussing any aspect of, the ecosystem. So it's been great. Space Cowboys, Angwin, anyone else in here got final thoughts?
What do you guys think the price is going to be when Jewel unlocks?
Ooh. I also have to think about how much more developed it's going to be, and like I think they know, like everyone knows about Lock Jewel. Everyone, the devs, the team is aware. They've got a lot locked up as well. Not saying they're gonna do whatever they can to make the price like I don't think it's gonna be like $100 or anything, but I think there's gonna be enough utility down the line to absorb a lot of that, and I think there's just gonna be you might just see higher volatility overall. So that's where like the overall vesting, some of that'll get averaged out, but I think especially seeing what's being built right now in terms of this floor between $5 to $10, I can see it between 10 and 20 even at some points throughout, just kind of depending at where we are during the unlocking. Like Superior has said earlier, you probably might see like a fake out. People will probably front run it a little bit, as it starts, but then depending on how it goes over time, and I think you'll see a more sustainable price.
Yeah, I think it's also, so I don't have a prediction really, but I feel like people have talked a fair bit about the impact of the locked jewel market and, how the sort of P2P sort of circumvents the market. Maybe money that was being put into locked jewel would have been put into jewel otherwise, and that didn't help the price action. But I can't help but wonder if, on the other hand, it's also sort of shaking out some people who definitely would have sold when, like, if you're willing to sell your locked jewel at an 80% discount now, you probably definitely would have sold it when it unlocked immediately, right? And maybe the people who it got sold to are more willing to hold on to it or not sell all of it. That's
Right.
Don't know for sure, but
They've certainly raised the floor. I'll say that, right?
A lot of locked jewel was minted, yeah, like under 50 cents to under $1, and if you've got people buying it at like $2 to $4, like essentially it's the people that are buying it now. Yeah, they need the price to stay at least above their entry point, so you could think of at least looking at the locked jewel markets and thinking of that as maybe at least a floor for a lot of these players that are just getting in.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think I'm counting on it going back to $20 when it unlocks, because I do believe that the devs are going to have some timely stuff to literally absorb all those coins flowing back out into circulation. That's my belief. Along with all the hype train that's going to happen right after AVAX, lead us straight into that.
Yep. I think, as things get fleshed out, we'll probably get a better idea. Who knows what they got, Again, it can all change with one, airdrop or incentive or...
Right.
So,
Definitely high volatility for sure.
Yeah.
With those incentives, because and that last announcement that shot it to $22, geez, that was just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, and you're gonna have locked crystal markets, more than likely, and then whatever else comes next, and I still don't think it's a net negative. I mean, a lot of people, I think it really depends on where you're at, right? Like, if you have a bunch of locked jewel, I think most people are still bullish on it. But if you don't have a lot of locked jewel and you see all the locked jewel over the counter trading, it might make you feel a little more worried about the price action and whatnot. But I think, again, markets are going to be irrational, and they usually overperform and underperform. They go both ways, usually more so than you think. So should be interesting. But I think if you stick with it long enough, it'll balance it out. Because like if you're mining Jewel now, like you're essentially getting some locked Jewel at $7 right now, right? So I think it'll average out over time. So cool. Yeah, we've been going for a while, and like there's so much to talk about. There's so much that we didn't even talk about, and hopefully as we continue producing content, more opportunities for every aspect of DeFi Kingdoms to get touched on, and more people involved and discussing. So oh, look who just showed up. Sandwich just popped in. So what's up, Sandwich?
Hey, good to have you.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yo. We've just been going, chatting it up. We were wrapping up pretty soon, but we were just kind of touching up on Lock Jewel a little bit. Maybe doing some speculation. So yeah.
Thanks.
Do you have any
Sorry I joined so late.
no, it's all good. Yeah, we were talking about how we've been trying to like expand community involvement and like even having more some of these like open discussions. And I know on your guys' last stream too, you guys, don't shy away from talking about, aspects or what's been going on in DeFi Kingdoms as well. We were talking about like the idea of like a community run council, or, like ways to more promptly bring up, if there's like things happening in the community, things that maybe we want brought to team members' attention, stuff like that, where there's a more like direct line of communication or official way of communication. So
That's a really good idea. Yeah, we were thinking about that a little bit too. Like there's just so many hot topics, and sometimes some sort of council that might have a way to get a better ear to listen to might make sense.
yeah, that might be something we can all kind of look into a little bit more over the next days or weeks, or bring up to certain people and see how that could get implemented, or providing some suggestions. Because yeah, I think that's a great idea too, because when you're in downtrends and like where it seems like negativity kind of like takes shape and like kind of has some more control, and you're kind of like overwhelmed by all the negativity going on, like it's a lot, and it's abundant, and it's a lot for certain people to try to like handle. And you don't just want to like ban people for saying anything or bringing up their ideas, and we need, you want to hear people out. And I don't think the community has ever done that in the first place, but I think the DeFi Kingdoms takes pride in the community and how we've handled a lot of situations. So just as we grow, I think that aspect will grow with it. So but yeah, it's a lot to look forward to. See when the devs pump the price up a little bit. But it's kind of chilling. Nothing to really worry about. It's doing its thing. Yeah. Anyone got some final thoughts? We'll kind of get some of these running, more often down the line, and just getting as much input as we can. So, Soup, anyone else?
I feel like, again, I think new topics would kind of drag us on for probably a little longer than we want to have this run for. So I think we can definitely come back and bring a chunk of this panel back, and the community can contribute, and we could keep going over some of the remaining topics that are left undiscussed.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just getting people involved, getting more voices out there. And I think this is kind of where this all stemmed in the first place, in price discussion. Everyone just kind of chatting it up and giving their ideas, and we can get enough people, we can kind of like moderate ourselves and getting, just trying to get as much ideas out there. And I think the team teams appreciate that too, and just more discussion, more content, more, you know, DeFi Kingdoms you can at least discuss more so than just drama going on, like in a lot of other projects. It's just, you know, there's so much development and, you know, intricacies within this ecosystem we can kind of go into, you know, the topics and the amount you can talk about this stuff is pretty much endless. So yeah, we can kind of stop this one here, give us some time, and plan for another one soon, you know, just getting these chats going. So I appreciate everyone kind of stopping in, you know, popping in and out. Was kind of how we'll make it, you know, free flowing, open. So cool. I'll just cut it there. Yeah, we'll get a new one going soon. All right. Talk to y'all later.